Hello everyone, welcome to my channel English with Dev Krishna. Today I'm going to teach you one of my very favorite stories, Bonku Babu's Friend, written by Satyajit Ray. I have divided the video into three parts. First of all, the major pointers, okay, where you will be getting all the major significant areas where you need to focus on. Second part is the figure of speech, which I've made a separate part on. And at the end of the video, you will be finding certain very important questions with answers. If you find it valuable, you can take a screenshot or a printout, and I think it's going to benefit you. So, without much ado, let's begin. Here, in Bonku Babu's Friend, we meet the protagonist. The protagonist is not a typical Bollywood hero who fights against all odds. No, he's not like that. He is a very timid, sheepish fellow. He digests everyone's insults, be it his students or be it his associates. His students bully him in the class, throws things at him, mocks him, and he digests it because he thinks they are children. He focuses on the good students and he calls them home. Here, Satyajit Ray has not mentioned anything particular about Bonku Babu's family. Maybe he's a lonely man, and this is the reason he spends his time with the good students. He calls them home, invites them to certain delicacies, and at other moments in the evening he goes and spends time with the other associates in the Kakurgachi village. Now the problem starts is that Bonku Babu does not know how to address the situation of bullying. He gets bullied by his students, he gets bullied by his associates, and he's unable to voice it out because he knows that if he leaves his job, he will be unable to find another job in the poor village, and that also at his age. So here on page 70, if you find in the first paragraph, some drew his cartoon on the blackboard, others put glue on his chair, or on the night of Kali Puja, they lit a chasing rocket and set it off right behind him. It shows the kind of torment he went through because of his students, some of his students. And then to add to his woes, his associates were a big headache. So if we further move ahead, you will find that whenever he used to go and sit with the other important people at Sripati Babu's house. Sripati Babu was a big lawyer and he was like the very rich man. He was very influential in the village. These people, they had one adda. Adda, you must be knowing this, a classic Bengali word, adda, where people talk about at times important things, at times nonsense. Anyway, now coming to this village, the mentality of the people is very narrow. They have half-baked information, and half-baked information is extremely dangerous. So this man, Bonku Babu, he attends these meetings because he also has to be a part of the game. He has to be in everybody's good book so that he does not stand a chance of losing his job. So he goes to Sripati Babu's house every day where they meet in the evening, and he gets bullied in and out. But he digests it. At times he returns home teary-eyed. At one moment, what happens? He says that he is not scared of ghosts and all. Okay, he's not scared of anything supernatural. And to teach him a lesson, these elders, these adults, they go worse than children. They play a prank on him where he was returning. Here in this part on page 71, the day for some unknown reason, he opened it and declared that he was not afraid of ghosts. That was all. But it was enough to give a golden opportunity to the others. On his way back home, Bonku Babu was attacked by a spook. Somebody just jumped on him, landed on his neck and injured him. Here it shows that as it happened, the apparition had smeared black ink all over itself, possibly at the suggestion of someone at the meeting. So it was a very practical prank, and it was torturous for anybody. It was extremely torturous. Next, the major part. So this is the first part, ill-treated by students and associates. Secondly, practical jokes played on him, the one that I just now spoke about. Thirdly, now comes a satellite episode where I've written half-baked information. Don't worry if you're unable to see it. I will be clicking a picture of this and adding it at the end with my question answers. So half-baked information. So what happens? They read it in the newspaper about a certain Russian satellite, And then people, these elders, these half educated, not also educated people, they talk about like who does it, all humbugs, who sends all these satellites, what is the use of it, and they don't even know the name of the satellite. And some people call it khotka or phoshka. In Bengali, khotka means a certain a hint that something bad is going to happen, a feeling of ill omen. Okay, phoshka means a shoe bite. So they make it into a very they make it into a joke. They don't find the seriousness of the gravity of sending a satellite. But Bonku Babu is an intellectual entity. He says that what if Bonku Babu was the first to spot, page 70 to the first line, if you can write down foreshadowing, the word, I'll come to that, but I will still mention foreshadowing. Foreshadowing means a hint in advance, where he says that particular evening, Bonku Babu was the first to spot the strange light. And he says, what if he is the one, and he feels, what if this satellite, it lands here, or whatever the spot is, it lands in the Kakurgachi village. So he's very optimistic. He thinks, why not? And then he tells Nidhu Babu that I've seen a light. I'm the first one to spot it. And Nidhu Babu, he goes and tells it in the Adda that he is the one. Nidhu Babu is the one to spot it. So clear cut, he's a blank-faced liar. And on hearing that, Bonku Babu again digests that, okay, like it's sort of gaslighting, that I had told this person that I was the one to see the light, and this person is taking all the credit. Fine, okay. He's very mature. It's actually a very sign of great maturity. Then the various comments, the summarization of the various comments on the satellite, be it Ram Kanai, be it Nidhu Babu, be it Chondi Babu, everybody, even Bhairav Chakravarti, everybody has certain things to say, and all were absolutely nonsensical. They did not understand the gravity of sending a spacecraft, and they made a big, hue and cry about it. Coming to the next part is, in this satellite episode only, they talk about spacecraft. Bhairav Chakravarti spoke next. Suppose some creature from a different planet arrived on Earth. So this is also a part of the satellite episode. So here Bonku Babu again shows his courage. He speaks up. He says, suppose they came here. And there's nothing wrong with it, because he knows that a supernatural or an extraterrestrial being has got nothing to do where it lands. For it, Earth is a place. Whether it lands in Calcutta or London or China or Japan, doesn't matter. When he says, suppose they came here, it's on page 73, they start attacking him again. They said, yes, definitely. If the spacecraft comes here, you will be the perfect specimen. So if you point out somebody as a perfect specimen for human beings, what does it mean? Again, you are bullying that person. Okay? So, and finally, the final comment came from Sripati Babu, where he gives his final verdict, because he's rich, because he's the one giving free tea and snacks to these people. So he finally passes the comment that, or the verdict, you can say, that no such thing is going to happen in a god-forsaken place like a Kapurgachi village, because these supernatural, or these extraterrestrial, not supernatural, extraterrestrial beings are not stupid. They are also sahibs, they're also foreigners, and if they do land, they will land in some foreign country. Okay, now everyone agreed with the sole exception of Bonku Babu, but Bonku Babu keeps quiet, and then these people again join in bullying him. Bonku Babu did not reply, but wondered silently and then they start taunting him that if the supernatural or the extraterrestrial being, they do come, then they will take away Bonku Bihari with them, because he's a perfect specimen for human beings. Again, this is a kind of a taunting scenario, but Bonku Babu did not reply, but wondered silently. He starts wondering that, and then mentally he thinks that he starts taunting them mentally. He says, if if anyone were to actually look for a specimen, look at Sripoti Babu. This is on page 74. His chin was so much like a camel's that Bhairav Chakravarti, his eyes were like the eyes of a tortoise. Nidhu Babu looked like a rat, Ram Kanai like a goat, and Chandi Babu like a fritter mouse. If a zoo really had to be filled up, and this entire paragraph is a simile because we have used the word like and as. Like and as. Every character has been compared to an animal. Okay. Moving ahead. He leaves the adda, he leaves the conversation because he was done and dusted, and he leaves. Then while returning, he finds comes our next pointer, encounter with Anne. Now while returning, he feels that there is an eerie silence. Sometimes certain places are so silent that silence actually hits your eardrums. You feel what's happening, like it is so crazy. It gives you an uncomfortable feeling because even the crickets aren't chirping. Then page 75, the main portion comes. Puzzled, Bonku Babu walked another 20 yards and then he suddenly saw the light. At first he thought that a fire had broken out. Bang in the middle of Poncha Ghosh's bamboo grove, he sees a small pond all glowing pink and he finds a dull light shining on every leaf. When he moves a bit ahead, he finds a UFO. It's like an inverted bowl giving out radiating pink light. And finally he finds an extremely thin a sound, milli peeping crook. And then when he turns and he feels shocked. He feels as if somebody has bound him there with some energy that he could feel radiating from that inverted bowl, and he's fixed to that place. It's as if somebody has done a spell work on him and he's unable to move. Now through that door now comes the very important portion. Anne's physical description is definitely going to come in your exams. Hands down, it's a very, very common question also. So please pay attention. Page 76. Through that door emerged a head like a plain smooth ball, and then the body of a weird creature. Its arms and legs were amazingly thin. With the exception of its head, its whole body was covered with a shiny pink outfit. Instead of ears and nose, it had tiny holes. There was no sign of hair anywhere, and they appeared to be glowing in the dark. And then this voice says Namaskar. Bonku Babu also returns his Namaskar. Finally, when they start speaking, this person or this extraterrestrial being, he says that he was going to Mars and he veered off to Jupiter. So it delayed him and he starts laughing. Then finally he introduces himself. I am Anne from the planet Cranius, a far superior being than man. What an introduction. Whenever, I'll just put in something in between. Some people, whenever they introduce themselves, they say, myself Dev Krishna Das. That is absolutely wrong English. Please never speak that way. If you are to introduce yourself, you have to introduce yourself with a lot of confidence. I am Dev Krishna Das and I am here to teach you English to the best of my possibility. Be humble, but at the same time be confident. Here this person, this alien, he puts it out in the very first beginning, I am superior to you. That introduction is the deal breaker. So then he says, but Bonku Babu thinks you're such a 4 feet tall, such a like a rubber garter. What are you going to be? How are you more far superior than us? He doesn't find any logic in it. But Ang has the capability of reading his mind. He says, "There's no need to be so skeptical. I can prove it. How many languages do you know?" And now comes the comparison between Ang and the humans. The moment I'm turning towards these pointers, remember, you don't need to mug up the chapter. No, you need to focus. You need to know your chapter well, because your book is your Bible. If you read the chapter 3 to 4 times slowly, each and every time you will read, you will get a different and a deeper and a profound meaning. So, but the places where you need to put more stress are these. That is why I made separate pointers. Okay. Now coming to comparison between Ang and the humans. He says, and asks Bonku Babu, how many languages do you know? He says 2.5, Hindi, Bengali. And he has a typical Bengali accent. Bengali English. And a little Hindi I mean. So Ang says, you mean 2.5? So Bonku Babu says, yes. He says, I know 14,000. I also know 31 languages spoken on planets outside your system. I have been to 25 of them. How old are you? Second comparison. Bonku Babu says, I'm 50. Ang says, I'm age 33. Do you eat animals? Bonku Babu recently had mutton curry, so he says, yes. But Ang says, before that, we used to eat the flesh of most creatures. I might have also eaten you. So that actually scares him. Okay, and finally he will show the comparison, which is not directly written in the story, but you will definitely point it out. First comparison is the age factor. Next, the language. Third is when he just mentions that they used to eat human beings. Like they used to eat non-veg, he could have eaten human beings as well. But the major part, the fourth pointer, is that he shows Bonku Babu a pebble, and through that pebble it's like a crystal ball, magical crystal ball, where the places that Bonku Babu earnestly wanted to go as a geography teacher, he experiences that pleasure of visiting these places through that pebble. And because of that pebble only, he was tied down to that place. So Ang indirectly shows his capabilities. Like, although he looks like a rubber garter, although he looks very feeble, a 4 feet tall creature, he is not to be taken lightly. Okay, so page 78, that is the part very, very important, where Ang says, is there any place that you have wished to visit or a scene that you have longed to see? And then this is another pointer which I will just mark it for you. Yes, this was an important pointer, that he sees the world through that pebble. Okay, so that is a huge part. I will be like, if you see my question answers at the end of the video, you will find that I have tried to make it as compact as possible. Here he says, he goes to page 79. He sees the endless expanse of snow dotted with large hillocks, ice and snow, deep blue sky, all the colors of a rainbow, aurora borealis, igloo. I'm just mentioning the places. A group of polar bears. Then there was a walrus fighting. Bonku Babu remembers instantly the piranhas, those deadly carnivorous fish, dense forests where the sunlight hardly could enter. And then he finally finds the anaconda, which at times he had read about in an old issue of the National Geographic magazine. And then he finds in a canal where he finds crocodiles lined its banks sleeping in the sun, and he gets extremely excited. His limbs were trembling, his head was reeling. It was like that much. So now he says, page 80, very important, when Ang says, now do you believe that we are superior? So he indirectly does this to prove his superiority. Okay. Next, then finally, the major pointer, twist at the end. Ang says, before leaving, that you are a very weak human, but you're a good human being. Ang could actually feel Bonku Babu's vibe. And he gave him a piece of advice that changed Bonku Babu's life forever. He says, you are much too meek and mild. That is why you have made so little progress in life. And in life it happens. If you think what your friends are going to think about you, or how people are going to conceive you as a fool, as this or that, you're ugly, or you're never going to make progress. And especially if you are a people pleaser, you are never going to make progress. It's a hard fact. You have to annoy certain people, you have to let certain people down, and that is the way people progress. Because if you want to be in everybody's good books, it's not going to happen. So he says, this is the reason you have not been able to do well for yourself, because you have been graceful. But being graceful in every situation is not good. Then people take that grace as weakness. So to take things quietly is wrong, not just for man, but for any creature anyway. Anyway, it was nice to have met you, although I wasn't really supposed to be here. There's no point in wasting time. And then he says goodbye and he leaves. Bonku Babu now feels a surge of energy within himself. He feels that he's extremely lucky. Why won't he feel that he's lucky? Because out of billions of people living on this planet Earth, he was chosen by Ang. Right? And that too, where did he live? Where did he belong to? He belonged to Kakurgachi village. It's like a god-forsaken place. Nobody even knows the name. Okay? Now coming to page 81, the twist at the end. The next day was a Sunday. Everyone had turned up for their usual meeting, again that Adda. There was a report in the local paper about a strange light and they were talking about it as usual. Now Bonku Babu enters as if a small hurricane swept inside the guise of a short, dark man, throwing everyone into stunned silence. And then comes the blast. And then comes my favorite part, where he actually gives it back. When he could finally stop, he was actually so much energetic. Finally, when he stopped, he said, "Friends, I have great pleasure in telling you that this is the last time you will be seeing me. The only reason I'm here today is simply that I would like to tell you a few truths before I go. Number one, this is for all of you. You all speak a great deal of absolute rubbish, and this is a pure pleasurable moment where he gives it back to them. Only idiots talk of things they don't know anything about. Yes, absolutely. If you don't have knowledge about physics, if you don't have knowledge about literature, better not open your mouth." So number two, then he says, "This is for Chondi Babu. At your age, hiding other people's shoes and umbrellas is not just childish but totally stupid and wrong." Then he comes to Nidhu Babu. "If you call me Bankam, I shall call you Nitwit, and you have to live with it." Then comes the main boss, the influential fellow, Sripati Babu. "You are an important man. Of course, you must have chamchas." And chamcha is a very prevalent word in India, be it Bengali or be it in Hindi. Chamcha means sycophants. But let me tell you, from today you can count me out. I am not going to do your chamchagiri anymore. If you like, and I can send you my cat. He is quite good at licking feet. And then he comes to Poncha Babu, that don't be shocked. It was in your bamboo grove that spacecraft had landed, and I met Ang. The man, then he says, the man, he says, sorry, the Ang. For him, Ang is not even a human being. Of course, he's not a human being. But the deeper meaning is that you human beings could not treat me, an equal human being, like a human, but an outsider, an alien, treated me with so much respect, gave me the best advice of my life, that I can come out of this, this kind of a low life, okay? Was most amiable. He says he was he was the friendliest person I have ever seen. Then he finished his speech and slapped Bhairav Chakravarti back so hard that he was about to fall, and then he leaves. Okay. Now we come to the second part, that is the figure of speech. Okay. I'll be pointing it out page wise so that you can point it out easily. First of all, we have the irony. The title itself is ironical, because Bonku Babu's friend does not turn out to be a human being. It's an extraterrestrial being, an alien, somebody who completely transforms his life. Okay, so you definitely, if you have a justification of the title, or you have a question, is Bonku Babu's friend an apt title, you can add that the title is ironical as well. Next, the irony is even verbal. I'll tell you, the verbal irony is on page 73, when Nidhu Babu says, "Why I think Bonku is quite right. Isn't it natural that aliens should want to come to a place where there's a man like our Bonku Bihari? If they wanted to take away human specimen, could they find anything better?" "No, I don't think so," Nidhu Babu joined in. "Consider his looks, not to mention his brains. Yes, Bankam would be the ideal specimen. Right, suitable for keeping in a museum or a zoo." Ramkanai chipped in till this much. Why is it verbal? Because it is irony, because they are trying to put Bonku Bihari or Bonku Babu down. But that same situation, or the kind of words that they are inflicting on poor Bonku Babu are the same words that should be applied to them. Okay, so that is your verbal irony. And third one is situational irony, where in spite of demeaning him day in and day out, in spite of making his life super torturous, at the end, Bonku Babu, the underdog, turns into a hero. He comes out of it gallantly. Okay. Next, imagery. Imagery, what is an imagery? Imagery is a set of words which is used in such a way by the writer that it gives you a clear picture through the setting, through the words itself. Okay, so the imagery is, yes, on page 75 on the top, like at the top of the page, the first paragraph. A dull light shone on every branch and every leaf. Down below, the ground behind the pond was lit by a much stronger pink light. It was not fire, for it was still. So he gives a proper kind of, within these 3 to 4 lines, Satyajit Ray gives a hint. Because see, you have to understand, when this story was written at that time, people did not have any idea about aliens, UFO. So you have to understand why Satyajit Ray was always considered a genius. Number 2, there was a rumor that the Hollywood movie E.T. by Steven Spielberg was actually taken from Satyajit Ray's book. Satyajit Ray's unpublished book, The Alien. He was also about to make a film on it, but then some people say that Steven Spielberg had stolen his content. Anyway, so next comes to foreshadowing. Foreshadowing I've already mentioned, but I will mention to you again on page 72. Foreshadowing is a sort of, it's a figure of speech that hints in advance that something is going to happen. This person is going to be involved. Here it says that that particular evening, Bonku Babu was the first to spot the strange light. So if he was the one to spot the strange light, and he is a kind of person getting bullied, disrespected, like he has no spine. It almost makes him look like a spineless fellow. Why is he chosen as the one to have such a life-changing encounter with someone from space? So that's called foreshadowing, and the writer already gives us a hint that he's the chosen one. Okay, next we have simile, where he comments on everyone. Like he thinks inward that, you people are supposed to be in the zoo, not I. Where he says, page 74, Bonku Babu did not reply but wondered silently. If anyone were to actually look for a specimen, weren't the others just as suitable? Look at Sripati Babu. His chin was so much like a camel's. Again, like word. And that Bhairav Chakravarti, his eyes were like the eyes of a tortoise. Like. Nidhu Babu looked like a rat. Ram Kanai like a goat. Chandi Babu like a flittermouse. So if a zoo really had to be filled up. So he compares each and every character with an animal. Okay, so that's a simile. Then we have the hyperbole. Hyperbole means an exaggeration, where in order to create a major impact, you exaggerate the situation. So here on page, I'll tell you, 81, he says at the bottom, it was as if a small hurricane swept inside the guise of a short dark man, throwing everyone into stunned silence. So the way Bonku Babu enters, it was like full of energy, high on energy. But of course, a human being cannot enter a room like a storm, like a hurricane. But in order to show the intensity, sometimes we say, na, jhorer moto, like tufan ki tarah. It's like that, like a hurricane swept inside the room. Finally, we have the theme, friendship, bullying and justice. Bullying is one of the major themes here. And when Ang comes, he proves himself a friend in need is a friend indeed. What we say is like, he gives such a life-changing advice to Bonku Babu that he understands his drawback, and then he decides to lead a dignified life henceforth, not a life where he's filled with insecurity. What about my job? What about me being in people's good books? What about me being a people pleaser? He stops leading his life according to others' wishes and he starts living for himself. The best part, critical appreciation of Ray's work. You have to understand two parts of it. First of all, in those days, nobody spoke about UFO, spacecraft, extraterrestrial beings, but Satyajit Ray did that, and he is a maestro. He has done groundbreaking work. If you get a chance to read his books, you have a collection of short stories by Penguin Publishers. Give it a try. Each and every story, they are class apart. They're one of a kind, nothing interrelated. And he was a man ahead of his times. So this is first of all the best, critically if you want to appreciate his work, that's the first thing. Second thing is he writes about Bonku Babu in such a way, and you have to use these things. See, literature is not what I feel and I'm going to impose it on you. No, literature is something what you feel, and you have that free will, you have the free hand to express yourself in your answers. Just don't write blatantly whatever it is in the story. If you come across a question where you have to also voice out your opinion, please do so. Don't be shy, because here Satyajit Ray does not show Bonku Babu. He does write in a way that it brings out pity for him. We feel bad for him. But then not one single moment does Satyajit Ray portray him as a kind of a person who solicits pity, who solicits charity. No. In fact, he is bogged down, but he does at times speak up. That what if the alien comes here, what if the spacecraft comes here, and he does voice out, even in a timid way, he does voice out. Second part, when he encounters that spacecraft, he does not run away, or he does not even try to run away. He does feel tensed, but he stands there. Okay, even in that moment also, you will find that when these people, the people with whom he used to mix, they send a person dressed up like a spook, and he lands on his neck. It is clearly written that he does not get scared. Bonku Babu is not scared. He gets injured, due to which his neck pains for the next 3 days. But Satyajit doesn't write that he was very scared. No, he was not scared. The line is clearly mentioned. If you read it well, you will come across it. So here, what Satyajit Ray is trying to tell us through Bonku Babu's character is, instead of sympathizing with someone, look for a solution. In our everyday life, in school, in college, or wherever you are, if you find your friend being bullied, instead of sympathizing with him, oh, I feel so bad for you, this and that, why don't you tell him, or why don't you infuse him with that courage so that he can stand up for himself? That's what Satyajit Ray does through the character of Ang. Ang does not sympathize with him. Ang does not even stay back for him. He just gives those golden words to Bonku Babu that changes, it transforms his life completely. And I firmly believe that we, in life, in the course of life, it's a life specimen. What Satyajit Ray writes in Bonku Babu's Friend is the essence of life. That we will definitely come across, in any form, a character called Ang in our lives. And if at all you do not find any Ang in your life, be your own Ang. Develop that potential, that courage to fight against any kind of ill treatment that you come across. Okay, so here I come to an end of this chapter. If you feel that you have any queries, feel free to comment, and I will try my best to answer each and every comment. And as I've told you, after this video is over, at the end, just at the end, you will be finding few question answers. If you find it valuable, please write it down, or take a screenshot and print it out. I'll be very happy if it is of good use to you, if it is of value to you. And if you have any query, put it down in the comment. If you find my video valuable, or if you like what I do, then please feel free to comment, to share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you again in the next video. Till then, keep reading.